it's one of those issues that people struggle with. It's not something that comes naturally for a lot of people, and we don't really teach it in university. So I want to make sure that we get a chance to look at classroom management, look at what we can do to feel more effective in the classroom as teachers. Like Kimberly was saying, I'm the assistant principal at Asheville Middle School. I just got the position about a month ago, so I've been working my tail off trying to learn that whole new perspective on school, different from teachers. I've taught the middle grades reading and writing for the last 14 years in Western North Carolina. And I created this material through my own struggles with classroom management. When I first started teaching, it was in the 4th grade, and I was horrible at classroom management, and it was not fun for me. So I went to some training and learned some basic skills that over time I've turned into this training. And what's great is that I've been where a lot of you are and that you struggle with getting your students to be motivated to learn. And I've worked out a system that works not just for me, but it's worked for thousands of teachers. And it's a great system. And it'll if you listen to the training thoughtfully, you're honest with yourself as we go through this training, I think that you will truly be able to grow into the teacher that you want to be, that you've always known that you can be. So by the end of this session, try to scooch this over. By the end of this session, you should understand your role in creating, preventing, and solving the behavior problems in your classroom. Yeah, you will have the groundwork for a behavior system that guides your students to better behavior without the power struggle. And you'll hear me talk a lot about this power struggle throughout this presentation. The power struggle is not healthy for our students, and it's not healthy for us as teachers, and it's not healthy in terms of trying to teach our students. So the question I always ask is, what is it that keeps you from teaching? And right now, just to yourself, think about it. What are the things in the course of a regular day that keeps you from teaching? What are the things? I know that I can think of several of them right away. Things like bathroom breaks, talkative students, tardy students, students without pencils or paper, students not doing their homework or disrespectful. All of these things have kept me from teaching. There are moments when I'm no longer providing instruction, but I'm dealing with classroom management. So the trick is, what do we do to minimize the time off task dealing with issues like this and maximize the time that we spend teaching? So whatever keeps you from teaching, you're going to need a system that is firm enough to handle these situations quickly, yet flexible enough to cover a diverse range of situations. Firm enough to handle it quickly, flexible enough to cover a diverse range of situations. So currently, what's working for you in the classroom? Think to yourself. If we were together, we would talk about these things, and maybe you could be chatting in the back channel. What's working for you in your classroom? What do you feel is really working for you, is a positive moment in your day, the successes that you experience? What are the things that are working for you? Just take a moment to think about this, or type something in. What's working for you? And then the next question is, well, what's not working for you? And if you're here in this with classroom management, it could very well be that the classroom management is what's not working for you. That's what's keeping you from being effective. So the question then is, what do you think the difference is between a teacher who is effective at managing students and one who isn't? It's an interesting question. What do you think the difference is between a teacher who is effective at managing students and one who isn't? Take a second just to type in response in that back channel if you're involved in that. The effective teacher.
Did you want me to read out a couple responses that are coming in?
That'd be fantastic, Kimberly, please.
Lindsay is saying building relationships with students.
Good.
And Tracy is saying consistency.
Great.
And Donna is saying organized teachers seem to be more effective.
Good. These are all great. Got one more for me, or is that it?
Let's see if one comes in. Monica's saying having a sense of humor doesn't hurt.
Yes, most definitely. Yeah, I remember when I first started teaching, the grizzled old veteran came up to me and said, "Make sure you don't smile before Christmas." And I said, "Okay, I'll be really tough." And then I realized, man, I like to smile. I like to have fun and laugh and joke, and I might as well have fun if I'm going to be teaching. So, yeah, a sense of humor is great. Okay, so it takes me to this key point of pay now or pay later. It's a key point, and I like to think of it in terms of the check engine light on your car. That light comes on, and you're like, it's probably just an oil change. I'll just let it go for a while, and then After a week or so, it just kind of even stopped seeing it because the check engine light's on so much. I've even got a buddy that put a piece of black electrical tape over the light so he wouldn't even have to see it. And what ends up happening is you should have gotten the $40 oil change, and you ran the car until it was dry of oil and you blow up your engine. So you can either pay that $40, get the oil change now, or you're going to be paying a lot more later. And this works with our students too. If you don't work to guide your students' behaviors now, you're going to have to do it later. And usually, it's better to straighten these issues out now when they're small little issues than later when they become big issues. Let me tell you what I'm talking. Here's an example. Mary throws a pencil at John across the room, hits John in the arm. You think, oh, it's no big deal. John doesn't really react or anything. So you just kind of let it go. You don't say anything. You're trying to avoid the conflict. John then picks up the pencil and throws it over at Mary and hits her in the eye, scratches her eye. Well, guess what? All of a sudden, you've got a big issue. And it could have been settled a second ago if you had just said, we don't throw anything in this class ever. Right? Deal with it when it's a small issue so it doesn't become a big issue. Another example. Mary throws a pencil at John. You don't say anything. John throws it back at Mary. Mary gets up and goes over and slaps John. Now you got a bigger issue. Right? And so it's so much better if you can if you see a lot of these simple behaviors, you straighten them out right away. You pay now before they become these bigger issues. It's just a much healthier way to work with approaching your students. Don't avoid the issues. So many teachers are afraid of not being liked by their students, or they really want to be their friends. Don't worry about any of that. That's all going to work itself out. Don't avoid the issues that are coming up in your classroom. You need to face them head on. Address them even before they come up in class. So, and for me, like with the throwing example, it's real simple. I say, listen, guys, we don't throw anything in my class ever. Just something as simple as that, right, before it even comes up in class. So you also want to let your students know that you've thought these things out, and you're ready for whatever they might throw at you. Well, hopefully they're not actually physically throwing things at you like desks. I've heard horror stories. But if you approach this from a point of view of saying, listen, we're not going to do this because it leads to worse behavior, so just stop. They get the idea that that you are confident, that you're secure standing in front of the classroom, that you're stable, that you know some of the behaviors that these 8th graders or whatever grade you're working with, you know the behaviors that they tend to exhibit, and you know what to do to straighten things out. All right, we've got to go through a little bit of some basic behaviorism here. I'm not a scientist. I don't play one on TV, but I know a little bit about behaviorism, mostly in how it pertains to student behavior, and really adult behavior, too. But some basic behavior, and I apologize now if anybody is a scientist and has really studied behaviorism, I'm probably going to just butcher this concept. But with behaviorism, it studies the ways that people can change the behavior of other individuals. So, of course, for us as teachers, we're looking at changing the behavior of our students. There's two ways with behaviorism that you can change behaviors. You can reward somebody or you can punish them. Both of them will change the behavior. I tend to prefer rewards, as most of us do. I would much rather be paid for doing a good job than have my pay docked for doing a bad job. I'm motivated, and I feel motivated by positive rewards versus a fear of punishments. It just resonates with me better. So with our students, I like to reward my students when things are going well, to encourage good behavior. We'll talk more about these rewards later, and you'll see how this all ties into this whole system when I get into kind of the nuts and bolts of the system. But this is just kind of giving you an example of ways to encourage positive behavior in your class. So some rewards that we've used. Fun Fridays, which is 15 minutes of time when we get to go outside and play kickball at the end of class. Free time, but you have to be careful with free time. I don't encourage it. Especially with younger ages, they are less able to structure their play in the classroom sometimes, and trouble can come up when you give them free time. So it's better to have structured free time. Maybe lunch in the room watching TV is a reward. Maybe sitting with another class at lunch, or 5 minutes to listen to music at the end of class. These are all some different sort of rewards that we can use to encourage positive behavior. Some sample punishments: isolation, silent lunch, losing minutes from lunch, quiet bookwork instead of fun activities. And then you've got things like after-school detention, or a variety of different punishments that we can use to try to change behavior. And sometimes this will change the behavior. There's no doubt that punishments, fear of being punished, will motivate some students to perform better. I definitely prefer the idea of rewarding than punishing. It just resonates with me. As you start to learn this system, and as you start to use this system, you'll need to approach your administration about this, and you'll need to explain exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it. Because if you're doing something like Fun Fridays where you go outside for 15 or 20 minutes, the administration needs to know why you're doing that and how it's helping you be more effective as a teacher. I can't guarantee. I'm almost certain that if you go up to your administrator and you say, listen, here's the deal. I've been having trouble with classroom management. I'm going to try this new system. I've got all of it laid out. We're going to reward students who perform well on Friday with 15 minutes of free time. And I really think this is going to give me more instructional time on task because the students are going to buy into the system. If you tell an administrator that you're going to be more efficient teaching and it's going to cost 15 minutes of free time at the end of the week on Friday, almost every administrator I have met will support you with that. But you need to approach him or her about that and make sure that that they're on board. And then, of course, some behaviors, as you work with your students, they require specific responses. And let's look at that. So, classroom management or office referral. It's always a tricky question, and now that I've become an administrator, I'm going to be getting a lot of firsthand experience with what some teachers feel should be an office referral and what some teachers feel they can handle in the classroom. So think just a second. What do you think, what behaviors should be handled in the classroom? Maybe type that in and Kimberly can read a few of those for us. What behaviors should we as teachers handle in the classroom and not refer to the office? Kimberly, are we getting any responses in?
Well, yeah, let's give them a second to type in and see.
Cool.
Let's see. Good. Linda says talking out. Tracy says bullying. And April says anything nonviolent.
Interesting.
And let's see. Schools should have consistent policies on what will deem a referral and what won't, says Chris. Good. Kim says argument. Cheryl says disrespect. And I guess some of these might depend from school to school.
Sure. Yeah, you bet. Different policies and such. Yeah, definitely. Things that I think should be handled in the classroom. Tardies, mild disrespect, homework issues, dress code, not being prepared, not following directions. Now, like Kimberly was saying, some schools have policies which I don't recommend working against. If the policy at your school says anybody who violates the dress code must go to the office, then guess what? Send them to the office. Of course, I would almost always rather deal with the students in my classroom than send them out because I guarantee they are not learning as much outside of my classroom. Well, they may be learning something. They're not learning what I want to teach them outside of the classroom than when they're in my class. And so I almost always prefer to keep my students in the classroom. So these are just some of the behaviors I think should always be handled in the classroom. Office referrals, things I think that should be immediate office referrals. Well, I don't take a second to type in what behaviors do you feel need to be immediate office referrals, things that are not something that you as a teacher should deal with in your classroom, that when it happens, you immediately call to the office or the school resource officer and have a student removed from your room or write it up.
People are quickly writing in for this one.
Good.
So severely disrupting the learning environment, fighting, stealing, fist fights, physical violence, sexual harassment, bullying, violence against another student or adult, and just a lot of violence is coming up. Yeah. Violence, continued swearing, that's a different one, threatening, drugs, and when you feel like you might lose control.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That moment of, as a teacher, it's those dangerous moments when you're in a conflict with the student and you feel your blood pressure rising and that vein is pulsing in your temple, and the students are starting to kind of really engage with with the conflict that's happening. Sometimes you need a little break, you need a little breathing room, and you can send a student to the office. So, yeah, those are great. Yeah, definitely fights, harassment, threats. I definitely think bullying needs to be referred, if not to the office, at least to the guidance, because the last thing you want to have happen is for you to witness bullying happen, to do nothing, and then one of those children goes home and harms himself for some reason. Not only is it damaging to the student that they didn't get the help they needed, it's damaging it would be damaging to me as an individual that I really, through my lack of attention, enabled or allowed a student to harm themselves. So these are things that you want to refer to the office so that we're either keeping a paper trail of behaviors